Welcome to Self-Funded. I'm your host, Chrissie. 10 years ago, starting a business around yourself was something reserved for celebrities. Today, professionals everywhere are breaking away from the 9-to-5 and building businesses around their own experience and expertise. On this show, we'll explore what it really means to be self-funded, the movement of professionals carving their own path, creating cash-flowing businesses, and building lasting impact without waiting for permission. I'll share my own journey and talk with others who are rethinking what's possible when you take your career into your own hands. Let's dive in. Today on the podcast, I have Tamara Muñoz-Whilden. Tamara is the founder and CEO of Behind the Screens, an operations and leadership partner for growth-oriented companies. Tamara parlayed years of experience in ops for two of the most playbook-oriented companies, Disney and Starbucks, into working with founders who need systems and processes to scale themselves out of delivery. She talks about the importance of scalable processes in small businesses and how she has moved into the visionary role in her own business and is now helping other CEOs do the same. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Tamara Muñoz-Whilden, welcome to Self-Funded.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It's great to have you. So before we jump in, I want to talk about your background and your business, but just start by just telling me what is Behind the Screens.
Yeah, so we are a full service business operations agency. So we support business owners, entrepreneurs in everything having to do with the back end, administrative, systems, automation, scaling. We handle all of that so that way they can stay focused on their zone of genius, marketing, sales, delivery.
Great. So I want to go way back to the early days of your life and your career. You have experience with two very large companies that I think are often studied from an operations and process efficiency perspective, Starbucks and Disney. Tell me a little bit about where you started your career and what you took away from those experiences.
Yeah. So I started my leadership journey really, really young. So I was 19, 20 when I went into leadership. And once I moved up at Disney is where I started. Mm-hmm. I started from the bottom at Disney. I'm talking like I was cleaning trash cans, bussing tables, and then moved through several departments before I ended up in management there. And my biggest thing with Disney and Starbucks, their systems are so flawless. Mm-hmm. They are so operations focused, truly just based on the volume of people that they have to serve every single day. And my biggest takeaway from that, I feel because I started so young there, it's the only life that I knew. Mm-hmm. Scalable systems. It's that rinse and repeat, being able to give your team members and your customers a repeatable experience. So that way, when they walk through your doors, when you walk through to Disney, have a magical day, 2-finger point. Behind all of that, there is so much training. There are manuals. There are trainers that were trained to do this. There are there's so much infrastructure in place. And that's why they've been able to grow and scale so quickly and why they can just open parks all over the world. And it is the same classic Walt Disney experience that you get. Same thing with Starbucks. So they have the training down, the manuals down, and everyone is trained to the point where it is, even to make a latte, there are steps to making a latte so that it is consistent, where when you get a latte in Florida, it's the same one that you get in Canada. Like it's the same thing across the board. So for me, leaving those companies, just taking away the fact that scalable systems is the key. It's a secret sauce to scaling a business without losing your mind. Mm-hmm. It becomes very simple once you're able to break down processes, train your team on them when it comes to delivery, but also accountability, leadership growth, developing your team, client expectations. Like then your clients become spokespeople for you because they're going to get a repeatable experience, and it's always going to be a certain caliber. So
it sounds like you certainly learned a lot about what to do right there. I know it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Tell me a little bit about the impetus to leave those organizations and really do something on your own.
Yeah. So I hit burnout after about a decade of being there. It does require a lot from you, grueling hours. There are very high expectations, of course. And at the end of the day, in corporations so large, regardless of the intention that they have to be people first, you are a number, and there are efficiency metrics that you need to be hitting consistently so that the business can be profitable and the stakeholders are happy. I hit burnout. It's just, it is what it is. And I always knew I was going to be a business owner. So it was never if this happens or if I ever open a business. It's like when I opened my business, it got to the point in 2018, a series of unfortunate events. My grandmother died. So like bereavement was a whole thing that I had to navigate. And there was a bunch of things that happened where my burnout got really, really bad. I also, at that point, was engaged and thinking more about like family. Like, you know, you hit like your late 20s and you're like, what's next for me? And it's like, okay, well, we're getting married. I want a family. Where I was at, a lot of my peers were putting their kids to bed via FaceTime. We worked long, long hours. We worked holidays. And beyond that, a lot of my peers and higher ups were navigating really tough relationship issues and divorce. And it was not an exception. Like it was very common. It was just how it was because of the hustle that was involved, especially when you want to grow and continue climbing that ladder. And I just saw that, and it's like, this is not for me. The time is now. I was always going to open a business. So what better time than right at this moment? So that's when I started planning to extract myself from the corporate world. I only had a plan A. There was no plan C or D. And lucky for me, plan A worked out. So here we are.
Well, I'm excited to learn more about it and have you share your experience. I thought it was interesting. You mentioned you always knew you were going to start a business. What did that business, like going back as a young girl or, you know, early career, like what were you thinking from a start a business perspective? What did you think you would end up doing?
I have no idea. I just knew that I wanted to be a business owner, and however that worked out, that's how it was going to work out. I'm first generation American, right? So my parents immigrated here, and there's that. I'm also like oldest daughter, so there's that like oldest daughter hustle that comes like for everyone.
I am as well.
Yeah. So, you know, and then there's that like extra layer of like the immigrant hustle. So like your parents come and they make it work, right? They work for that American dream. We never wanted for anything, but it was my parents had jobs and then they also had side jobs. So like they had like their own hustle, their own like small businesses. My mom started a small business on the side. My dad had his own thing going on. So I was just around that all the time, where they had like their safe jobs, which provided insurance and a paycheck. And then they had their ventures on the side to bring in extra money. But also I feel like at this point, looking back, it was very much a creative outlet for them and to be able to also have that freedom and to innovate. So I was surrounded by that my whole life. I've never just had one job. I mean, when I was working at Disney, I went seasonal for a bit. So I was a seasonal leader for them. And I did my MBA and had another full-time job at the same time that I was working there. So like,
wow.
That was a lot. There was a lot going on. I never just had one thing. So, so yeah, it got to the point where it's just like, I'm going to do it. So might as well just do it now.
Yeah. And it is interesting, you know, hearing about your parents, and, you know, sort of the original side hustlers, it sounds like, but, you know, you did choose to leave your job and go all in on this. And I know you talked about, you know, losing your grandmother as sort of this inflection point for you. And I know we've talked about that you got married, bought a house, and started your business all at once. Can you talk a little bit about that? You know, I would call that almost like burning the boats. So there's no other option, but you talked about it as plan A. Can you talk a little bit about those early days and what your plan was?
Yeah. So my biggest thing when leaving, you know, a very safe job, that was a whole thing with my family. Like you don't leave your safe job, you stay there, you die there. So that was very interesting to navigate. But for me, it was I'm willing to bet on myself 100 times over someone else. And I'm looking back again, hindsight is 2020. Speaking of 2020, I jumped right at the right time because of, unfortunately, all the stores that closed and all the layoffs that happened in 2020. I was already over a year into my business. But my plan, there was no plan. It was a get out. I did have a nice nest egg of savings because I did start my business in 2018. So I was working both my full-time management role and running my business I did that for about 6 months until I had enough savings. Rich and I were going to get married. So I was like, okay, the next step is to buy a house, because you can't buy, if you're an entrepreneur, you can't really buy a house until you have like 3 years worth.
Yeah.
So even though I had replaced my income within 3 months of starting my business, I couldn't pull the trigger on leaving until we had the keys. So the timing just worked out that we closed on our house on a Friday on May 3rd, and then we got married May 4th. And
wow.
I got the keys. I was like, okay, great. I called up my boss and I was like, hey, I adore this. It's been great. You're a wonderful leader. I'm out. And I gave them a month. So I did come back from my wedding. We took our honeymoon months later. I gave them like a full month to transition me out. And it was, I mean, I have nothing but love for my team there, but yeah, so that all happened literally within like 48 hours, and it was insane. And it's a fun story. But
it is a fun story, especially looking back. I'm sure at the time it was scary, but you knew what you were doing.
Yeah, it was very scary. But again, I had my savings. Worst case scenario, that's how I always looked at it. Worst case scenario, I go back. I go back. I find a traditional job, and it is what it is. So there was never a, if my business fails, I'm going to be out in the streets. I just go back to life. Okay.
What's interesting about that? I wish I could credit who said it, but I don't remember. But listening to a podcast a few years ago, I heard someone say that, that's sort of a common thing when you leave your job and you're doing something entrepreneurial, is like, worst case scenario, I can go back. And this person said, well, if you're not leaving and doing something entrepreneurial, you're living your worst case scenario, which was like, whoa to me in terms of the impact and thinking about it. You've gotten married, you have a bit of savings, you have a little bit of a backstop there. You have this month that you have given your notice, but you're staying on. So you're kind of fully kind of transitioning probably mentally to really launching your business. How did you get those early customers, and what did it look like? What were you offering?
Yeah. So in those early days, the easiest way for me to get out of corporate and traditional job was to do virtual assisting. So I jumped right into virtual assisting. It was very easy for me, administrative tasks. I mean, it's just part of the job growing up.
Can you just explain that? Like, because there may be people listening who aren't familiar with what a virtual assistant is. So I'd love for you to just explain what that is.
Yeah. So virtual assisting, it's literally anyone who can support a business virtually, remotely. So what I ended up doing, it's an umbrella term, right? So you can have a virtual assistant. So what I ended up doing was I focused on administrative and back-end ops. So it was a lot of email management, calendar management, setting up systems. So if someone wanted to launch a course, for example, I would set up their course hub. A lot of it I learned during my months where I was side hustling my business. I took a course. I invested $2,000 that I did not have. So I opened a credit card, an 18-month, like no interest. No interest. Yeah. Credit card. And I was like, okay, I can't pay these $2,000 off in 18 months. Like, this is going to be like my marker of success. It's just paying off. So I invested in that. The course taught me the skills I needed to know. I already knew I had like the know-how because of my background. It was mostly like platform specific. So like learning how to do something like Kajabi or, Acuity. Once I knew how to do that, it was very easy to handle it. So I dove right into Facebook groups, cold pitching. Way back in the day, one of my first jobs was I was basically like a telemarketer. Like, I was cold calling for a printing company.
Okay.
And it was my friend's dad's best friend. He needed someone to do that for his printing company. And I was just like, I need a summer job. So knowing, again, looking back, hindsight, the fact that I spent a whole summer getting rejected on the phone, because that's what you do when you're cold calling. Yeah. The majority of the job, it just made it so much easier for me to just be pitching consistently. Now that I was like starting my business, and I just knew that I needed like 3 clients and then I can leave. So I pitched and pitched and pitched, and I got 3 wonderful clients. And within like 3 months after that, I had 5. So I had like a full roster of clients, and I was able to leave. But then those clients, everything is about referrals, right? So the work that I was doing was high quality enough where I was just getting referred people left and right. and they had incredible networks. So that's when the business started to grow. And I quickly outgrew the virtual assisting role. I found online business management as like the next step. And that was kind of more my speed, more strategy, launch management, project management. But I still had all of these clients that I was serving at that virtual assistant level. So I brought someone in and then trained them up in the way that I was doing things. I found myself doing things a little differently than what is taught. You know, after you're taught something, you're able to, and you master it, you're able to just create your own method around it. So I brought in team members to handle those accounts. And then I moved into the online business management role. And I did that for about a year and a half before I outgrew that very quickly. Once I mastered what it was, you know, launch management, project management, scaling online businesses. I was very good at coming in, setting up those systems, and then supporting people with scaling that. I moved into more of a fractional COO role. And again, I brought in online business managers to then take over these clients. And that's kind of how we ended up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you've built your business. So two things come to mind. One, part of what I define as a self-funded business is you start with yourself as the product and you scale yourself out of it. And that sounds exactly what you've done, but at different stages. So from virtual assistant, becoming an expert at that, and then being able to, I'll say offload, but bring in someone else to manage, do the work while you're sort of overseeing it. And then with the online business manager as well. And then, you know, onto the fractional COO. So, that makes a lot of sense and is a smart way to build your business very intentionally and customize it, as you said, as well. So the other thing I want to come back to, one of the other things I talk about with self-funded businesses is that you either start from a customer perspective, you either start with your network or a niche. And it sounds like you had a specific niche. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you found those customers in these various Facebook groups?
Yeah. So when I first started, my niche was just online businesses. If you have an online business, whether it's you're a coach or a consultant, you're a practitioner, dietitian, I can serve you because the systems themselves are the same. The nuances of it, for example, like for practitioners, doctors, there's HIPAA involved in that. And I had worked in my past life in an agency. I did PR for a while in Miami, and we worked with some hospitals. So like in terms of like HIPAA, I was pretty familiar.
Some exposure to it.
Some exposure. It wasn't new to me. So that was pretty simple. But in terms of the systems themselves, like the professionalism, the setting up triage in inboxes, scheduling, like the Tetris that you have to play for like executive calendars, like it's the same across the board. So for me, it was just like online based businesses I could support. So I started joining a bunch of different Facebook groups. And at the time, they were all very active. Nowadays, they're not as active as they were, 7 years ago. But things like the Gold Digger podcast, Jenna Kutcher's Facebook group, there was a lot of opportunities at that time where people were like, hey, I need someone to help me set this up. So that's where I would be pitching. It's just like, hey, what do you do for your business? A lot of them were wedding professionals too. We supported them for a while, and we still do. But that it was if they had something online, I can help them. So that was my only qualifier. Are you online? Are you profitable? I am here for you.
That's smart though. And that's still, I feel like, enough of a niche, and you knew where to find those customers in these groups, which is really smart. How did you start to build it? You talked a little bit about this, but just in sort of building yourself out of it, but how did you really start to build this into a more scalable business and have almost like a product suite? Yeah,
it was productizing our services. So for a long time, just like selling the services, it was very much like a customized, like we can do whatever for whoever.
And were you at that time, were you charging on like a time basis, or how did the business model, the revenue model evolve as well? Curious.
So we were selling retainers, and we still sell retainers, but at that point we were selling very small retainers, like 10-hour a month, 20-hour a month retainers. At this point, we don't really touch anything that's less than like 30 to 40 hours a month in terms of our retainers, but because we're working with higher volume businesses that are making a lot more, because back then I was supporting entry-level business owners. So 10 hours go a long way when you're first starting your business. But yeah, it's always been, for the virtual assisting side, it's always been hourly. So like you get 10 hours, we use them up in the month. We never did like hour per hour, it's very hard to scale that. Because, for example, 1 month you can have, 5 hours. And then when you're contracting other people, you need to be able to promise them a certain amount of work.
Yeah.
So just doing retainer was the easiest on the forefront and on the back end when it came to paying the team, and also just having fixed cost.
Yeah.
That was important to me, so that we weren't constantly just up and down. Like, I just needed to know like what my margins were, what I could work with. And having that foresight at that time and that phase in business has helped a lot now, almost, a decade later, where we are bringing in experts, because at this point I've moved on from being generalists to just being a team of experts, and experts are higher paid. And just knowing that I have these margins where I can support to pay my team livable wages is just very important to me. But also like the reinvestment that goes into the business. I mean, we're building out AI tools internally. That's a huge investment, and feeling comfortable to do these things because of how we set everything up. It's just been a blessing that I had that foresight back then.
Yeah, no, that's smart. I actually, so you mentioned AI, you started this business well before, Gen AI was really a huge thing with Chat GPT and other tools like that. How has AI changed your business in the last, say, 3 to 4 years?
Yeah, AI has been so interesting, especially because, virtual assistants, I feel like for the most part, were some of the first to get replaced, along with like content writers, copywriters, by AI. In my experience with AI cannot replace people. We're not at the point yet where AI can replace people 100%. In my business and in my personal leadership, I'm very much people first. So with AI, it has made us more efficient. So now what we could do before in 20 hours, we can do now in like 12, 13 hours because of the support of AI. So we have, and the way that I see it, we have become people who leverage AI, and in the future, it's going to be people who use AI and people who don't use AI.
Yeah.
It's never going to be like AI versus people, because at the end of the day, you're still good. It does make a lot of mistakes. And you do need to be able to come through it and be efficient enough and know it well enough to prompt it properly to get what you want. And even internally, it has made life easier, because for me, another thing for our business, one of our values is work-life blend, and just having one that works for us, but also like not sacrificing our physical, mental, or like spiritual well-being for the hustle. So tools like AI tools, it has made it so much easier for my team to be able to stay in their zone of genius and be very fulfilled in their roles while being supported by these tools, because there is a level of efficiency. You can't deny it. And for when it first rolled out, like with every business owner who has a similar business like me, I was like, this is it. This is the end. We're obsolete very quickly. It's not true. Like, we're not obsolete. I mean, there have been AI chatbots on websites forever. The little helper that pops up like doom scrolling at 2 a.m. That's just like, how can I help you? They have existed for eons. It has not replaced call centers. It has not replaced humans that are answering emails. And I don't think that, at least in the foreseeable future, it is going to replace it in the grand scheme of things. However, we do need to move in the way of AI, because AI is not going anywhere, regardless of the implications to our environment and everything else. Like, AI is just not going anywhere. So we need to adapt as business owners, but also as professionals, because businesses are going to head that way. Big businesses, they'll probably be a lot slower than small businesses when it comes to shifting everything to AI, just because there's so much red tape involved. However, 10, 15 years down the line, it's going to be across the board. Just how cashiers were replaced by self-checkout. And now we have people that just check the self-checkout people. With that, more jobs are created on the back end for like technicians and developers and everything. So we need to be willing to shift before. It's important.
Makes sense. You've talked a lot about your team and being a people first leader. What does your team look like today, from a mix of employees versus contractors, and how have you thought about kind of building the people side of the business over the years?
Yeah, so we have a healthy mix of contractors and employees on my team. So at this point with employees, it's more my full-timers. My full-timers, specifically virtual assisting and online business managers, fall into that like employee bucket. And then my contractors are more of my specialists. So when we're talking, for example, like copywriters or graphic designers, they fall more into that contractor role. We do have several managers and editors and things like that are contractors. And for the most part, we do contract to hire to make sure that it's a fit for both sides. Behind the screens isn't for everyone. I always want to make sure that it is the right fit for the right people. Mostly because we are so client focused that we do have expectations around client turnaround and how we're doing things. I way back before I knew better, everyone tells you just hire contractors and it's fine. There's so much in terms of the legal side of things that prevents you from just hiring contractors. We do things very specifically here. So it's very much, we work with a fractional HR department so that we avoid any of that, because, we do have frameworks and processes that we do train people up on, and we do tell people how to do the job. So that's where things can get a little dicey. So as I continue to scale and we continue to just refine what we're doing, we are headed more on the employee W2 side of things.
Smart. Okay. I want to shift gears a little bit. You have talked about this notion of CEO extraction. So I want to learn more about, and it's funny because you were talking about earlier how your business really has evolved from VA to online business management to fractional COO. And I think this CEO extraction is sort of your next phase of growth. Can you just explain what you mean by CEO extraction to start?
Yeah. So CEO extraction for me, it means removing the business owners from the daily operations. There comes a point in business where it becomes more of a liability to have the business owner in the day-to-day ops, project management, launch management, even like hiring, talking to all the team members all the time, holding everything in their head, being the linchpin for all of the systems. You will hit a ceiling very, very quickly. That ceiling tends to be that like 300 to 500K. And it's a very painful $500,000 that you're hitting as a business owner who holds everything themselves. So with CEO extraction, we come in, it's a 4-phase basically program that it's done for you, because our CEOs can barely hold it together inside of their businesses. I'm not going to give them, a 14-page document and expect them to complete it. It's never going to get done. So we come in and we do it for you. And it's taking all of the systems from their brain, optimizing them. If they don't exist, we create it for them. If they don't have a team, we plug team members in to the systems that we're creating and we're optimizing for them. And then it is removing them within 4 months. They're usually out of the daily operations. They're no longer stuck in the inbox. I mean, historically, business owners spend anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a day inside of their inbox. And that's if they have just a low volume, regular business. If they have, for example, a 400-person membership, they're never leaving that inbox. And I know because my team members are sometimes in there for 6 to 7 hours managing those inboxes.
Yeah.
So it's removing them from those trenches. So that way they're able to be seated firmly in the CEO seat and handle CEO tasks and stick with their job description of being the business owner. Company growth, quality assurance, making sure that the product or the service that they're delivering is the best that it can be, getting on podcasts, networking, handling high-level growth-focused tasks, and not necessarily the $10, $20, even $100 tasks that fall under operations.
That makes sense. How have you extracted yourself from behind the screens?
So the catalysts were my kids for that. I had all 3 of my kids while running behind the screens, and my daughter, who's my firstborn, was it was a very hard lesson to learn with her, because this is something, creating systems and moving business owners out of the trenches of their business. It's what I do for them. I hadn't done it for myself. So when I had my daughter, I went through crippling postpartum depression. It was a very difficult time. Because my business was also very young. It was within its first 2 years. We were just barely stabilizing, and my entire life got turned upside down when I had my daughter. And I thought I was set up, and I thought the team was set up, and my clients were set up, but I was so embedded in the day that it was very, very difficult. So I took like the next 3 years between having my daughter and having my son, my second born, to extract myself. So that was creating systems. That was being the face of the business and the salesperson, and not necessarily being the one that's executing the work. So creating systems here where I am able to like plug team members into the client's businesses, and they are executing at the level that is expected of them. So it was a lot of like creating trainings, and every single year I find myself having to go back to our internal training and refine it even more. And I mean, now that we're doing CEO extraction, we're giving her a whole facelift, but now I have the time and capacity to do it. So once I got pregnant with Lucas, who's my second born, it was so much easier, and I had such a beautiful postpartum because my team was able to handle it. And I just had my third child back in July, and I was able to take 3 or 4 months off completely off the grid. Like, my team handled it. I have a director of operations who's incredible, and she handles everything there. My like client success manager is wonderful. So it's evolved to the point where I become a problem if I jump into things that please don't.
It's a different problem. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different problem. They're like, please stay in your lane. Like, we've got this. And that has been the most fulfilling feeling. And just having done it for myself, now being able to speak from a place of lived experience, it is so freeing. And just knowing that the business, I can double, triple, quadruple the business, and it's not going to impact my personal workload.
Yeah.
I just have to hire more, and we have the systems in place on the back end that it supports the onboarding, the training, the delivery. There's just like the sense of like calm that comes with it. I truly am able to be a visionary and to focus on impact and to focus on industry changing things like AI that 3-4 years ago I was unable to do because I was so in the trenches that it's like, oh, AI is coming out, I guess we're out of jobs. Like that was my mindset.
That's so freeing.
An opportunity. Yeah, everything's an opportunity now.
I think it's freeing up the time, but I think the other thing you're getting at is it's freeing up the mental capacity. So it's not, yes, like even if you were, let's say you were still deeply in your business, even if you have a free hour, you're probably not, you don't have the mind space to actually give, the strategy discussion or kind of the future path, the focus that it deserves. So that sounds like you've been able to create that, which is great. If I think about CEO extraction, you mentioned, kind of hitting a ceiling at, call it $300,000 to $500,000, which makes sense. I mean, it basically becomes like a good job, but a very painful one at that. And it's sort of a 24/7 type job. What would you say is the ideal company size and scale for doing this work around CEO extraction?
I would say definitely at that 500,000 or more. I feel like if you're hitting that 500,000, that's the best time to do it. If you're over that 500,000, you should have invested in this a while ago. I do think that usually when you hit the 500,000, you have an assistant. You might have 2 people working in your business, not including yourself. So very like small teams, that is the best time to do it. That is the best time to do it because you don't have too many team members that you're going to have to reprogram basically to whatever the new systems are. And the bad habits haven't started to like infiltrate a large operation of, 10, 15, 20 employees or contractors that are just used to things being this way. So even if you were to implement this, there is more of a learning curve and a culture shift that happens because it is a culture shift. There is, we had this incredible client 3 or 4 years ago. She had this $1 million planning business. She planned corporate events. She was incredible. And she had a team of 10.
Wow.
And a huge team for the work that she was doing. And she was so embedded in the day-to-day that she was involved with every single team member and their workloads. So when we did come in and basically extracted her from the business, it was a huge culture shock because it's not that we wanted to close the door to her office, and she had a policy. We didn't want to do that, but it's like, okay, well, now you don't have to go to her for every little thing. We promoted someone to be that intermediary, like that intermediary person, that COO, that director of ops for her, you go through them first. And then if we need to escalate, we will escalate. So that took a while for everyone to get on board. Everyone did get on board. And like everyone also was so grateful to now have systems to lean on because their lives became easier. They were significantly more efficient. And they didn't have to work as hard because we had templates and we had, now all the contacts that we had across the board through 10 different planners were in the same database. So it just became so much easier for them to do their jobs. But it was a huge culture shift. And there's this book. It's like Who Moved the Cheese?
Yeah.
So at Starbucks, when we would go into a new store, we would say like, don't move the mocha. Like, don't come into a store and you start moving things around. You like observe and then start getting buy-in, and then you start making the changes. And that's when you get to a higher level of business with bigger teams. It is one of those, like, you can't move the mocha. You have to get the buy-in. You have to bring the team along for the journey. So it's this other level of sophistication and leadership and thoughtfulness and emotional intelligence that has to come in, because you never want to make the team that has been working so hard for you feel like what they're doing is wrong, because it's not.
Yeah.
We just, there are better ways to do it. So when you start at that like $500,000 mark where it's just like 2 or 3 people to manage, it's just a lot easier to manage. But if you're finding yourself at that 1.5, 2 million mark and you have a pretty large team, we can still do it. The timeline's just going to be longer, and there is significantly more.
There's more of the cultural change. Way
more cultural change. And it starts from the top. So a lot of the times it's the hardest part is retraining the CEO.
Yeah, totally.
So at the end of the day, if the CEO is still not respecting those boundaries that they themselves have set, and they're still answering everything, and they're still checking in on everything, and they're not letting their director of operations or their COO handle the work, then the culture stays the same. So it's very much retraining them to not take ownership of everything anymore, because it's not theirs to own anymore. So that's where we pop in communication rhythms and updates and team meetings and pulse checks, where there is structure around them. So then that CEO feels very safe in letting go, because we all have very toxic relationships with our businesses, like very codependent. We want to create safety around it, because there is a lot of emotional entanglement that comes once you've been in a business for so long and it's your baby, and you have control over everything. So we want to make it safe through like transparency and communication up until it's safe for the CEO to take that next step and have department heads. And everything becomes a little bit more removed until the point where like the CEO is able to just do CEO stuff and not worry about every single little thing that's happening under them.
Totally. One of the things I love about your story is that you took this experience, both the good and the bad that you had at Disney and Starbucks, and in particular, saw the benefit of building these standard operating procedures and the ops and really bringing it into a space that you were passionate about and you had some, experience in or sort of visibility into. What advice would you give someone who, today is looking at, okay, I have years of experience in whatever space and I want to build a business around it on my own? What advice would you give to that person?
Just do it. And my thing is launch and then iterate. So launch the beta, the 1.0 version of how you want to serve people, whether that's through consulting or through a program. A lot of the people in our spaces, we do best going into something like consulting or integrating for people. So just launch and then evolve. And that's my biggest thing. The hardest thing is to get started. And the longer you take to get started and the longer you take to launch your product, your idea, your podcast, whatever, nothing's really going to change, right? The longer that you're going to spend, when you could have just spent all this time just iterating. And it's the same with, for example, like I always put everything back to like weight loss. Like you can start today and be, 15 pounds thinner by January 1st, or you can wait till January 1st and then start, 15 pounds behind, basically. Like the time's going to go by anyway. So you might as well just now.
That's great advice. Well, Tamara, thank you so much for joining me. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about Behind the Screens?
Yeah, so you can learn more about the business at behindthescreens.biz. We're also on Instagram, same thing, behindthescreens.biz. Or if you want to follow me directly, my name's on Instagram is Tamara Muñoz-Whilden. And there I share more of the thought leadership, personal CEO stuff. Whereas at the Behind the Screens, we share more of like the actual systems and client successes and all that really fun stuff that we do there.
Well, we'll put the links in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to Self-Funded. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow the show wherever you're listening so you don't miss what's coming next. I'd also love for you to leave a review and share what you're most excited about on your own self-funded journey. And if you want to go deeper, check out my Substack. You'll find the link below. Until next time, keep carving your own path.